Full body tracking. It's an essential part of getting virtual reality to where it needs to be. However, this essential piece of the puzzle has been inaccessible to most. Whether it's because of the price or the ease of use, most people you meet in VR aren't going to be using it. After all, not everybody wants to put on big bulky trackers every time they jump into VR, especially if they additionally require something like lighthouses. Well, this is where Stonx comes in. Stonx is full body tracking for VR that doesn't require base stations, won't break the bank, and on top of that is also super tiny and lightweight. The team behind it has been working on it for a while now, and as a matter of fact, at the beginning, they were using something they would call cookies, which also required beacons. Essentially, the beacons would send out an IR light, and the cookies reflected that IR light to the beacons. It was a bulky setup that a lot of people were quite unhappy with. So, after a while, Stonx moved to this. The new Stonx cookies use sensors and IMUs in order to track the position of your body parts, much like Slime VR, which is my current full body tracking setup. Full body tracking without lighthouses or some sort of external beacon has its upsides, but also has its downsides. So, what is up everyone? I'm Mysticle, and today we're going to be checking out the new Stonx cookies. How well do they work, and are they at all comparable to other tracking solutions out there? That's what we're here to find out. So, without any further ado, let's dig right in. So first of all, let's take a look at the trackers themselves. You get 6 of these in the package, as well as a receiver that you're going to have to connect to your PC. Yes, these are not standalone, these do require a PC to operate, as they require a Steam VR driver in order to communicate with VR games. What's important to note here is that I have a pre-release model in my hands, so yours will have a different quality and feel, but the design language will be mostly the same. The trackers consist of small, lightweight cookies, and when I say small and lightweight, I mean it. I mean, look at these things. They're tiny. You don't have to take my word for it though. Here are the numbers. The trackers are 45 by 45 millimeters, with a width of 15 millimeters, making them really tiny. But what matters is the tech that's inside. How much does it weigh? Well, the trackers come in at about 28 grams. This makes them ideal for long play sessions, as you really forget that they're there at all. Also on the trackers, we've got a Type-C port for charging and data transfer, as well as an LED light bar. And yes, this one is RGB, meaning you can change the colors of this light bar in the software. Nice. We've also got a button on the device to, of course, turn it on and turn it off. My trackers appear to be made of what seems to be 3D printed plastic, but it actually feels really nice and is smoothened out quite well. And at the top of the trackers, you can also see the Stonx logo. You also, of course, get the straps that you will route through the trackers at the back here in order to strap them to your body. And you get enough of these, trust me. So, with that info out of the way, let's move on to the spec sheet. How accurate are these, and how long will the battery last you? So, let's take a look at the specs and differences between the production kit, which is going to be the kit you guys are going to get, and the review kit that I have here right now. So, first of all, the antenna in my kit right now is suboptimal. It's not what you will be getting inside your kit, and it is what is actually producing the jittering inside the review kits, or at least this is what we were told. They're working on fixing it, and your version, the version you guys will get to buy, will have a more optimal omnidirectional antenna that will remove that jittering inside tracking. A big part of full body tracking, and a big part of all of these trackers, is battery life. How long is battery life going to last you? Well, the review kit gives us about 15 hours, or 10 hours after the wireless hotfix update. Your version, the production version, will have more than 20 hours of battery life. And I'm actually willing to believe this because most of these trackers, most of these IMU-based trackers, actually get very good battery life. The charging time on the review kit is about 4 hours. Yeah, not optimal, especially if something dies and you need it really quickly, but the charging time on yours is going to be about 2. These straps are currently handmade and not very optimal to put on or take off, but yours will be professionally made in factory. As we talked about earlier, our enclosures right now are FDM 3D printed. Even though I don't personally have an issue with that, I think certain things just work with 3D printing, and I think that this is one of them, but I do understand that a lot of you guys want professionalism, and yours will be injection molded. The strap slits are apparently too slim right now, and yours will be wide enough to route shoe straps through. I actually didn't have an issue with routing my straps through it, but that is a change that you can look forward to in your kits. The strap webbing hook is currently also 3D printed, and yours will be injection molded. The tracker button is currently inconsistent and a little bit mushy, but it does work. However, yours will of course be consistent and tactile. I do imagine that this is because currently they are 3D printed, and because of the inconsistencies in 3D printing, it just comes out a little bit mushy. Currently, right now, we've got slow synchronous updating, and you will have fast asynchronous updating. So yes, these things do support OTA updates. The way you update them is you actually plug them into the computer, jump into the Kakao software, and just press update. However, you do need to update each and every single one of them separately. So you need to unplug one, plug in the next one, press update. But it does work for OTA updates, and it's really, really simple. The price, as we talked about earlier, 6 trackers plus 1 dongle kit is going to cost you $270, and the charging dock, which is also apparently going to be a thing, is going to be $35. According to the naming scheme here, the dongle is called Strong Dong, the charging dock is called Docky Boy, and the tracker is called Tracker. I am disowning this. The first two are fine. However, the tracker I'm going to call Cookie from now on. You don't get to change that. There's no disagreeing with that. However, yeah, there you go. So these are the specs. This is what you can expect. And now I say we jump into the setup. I show you guys how to set everything up, and we check out the tracking quality. So setup on these things is actually super simple. They currently have their Kakao software, and as reviewers, we did have to install unsigned drivers. However, we were told that this is actually going to also be fixed for the production model. It's just they have to pay Microsoft to sign the drivers, and it's just not worth it for the review kits, which is fair enough. So after installing the drivers, after installing the software actually looks really nice. It's got a nice little GUI. It shows you exactly where which tracker goes, and what I love about the software is the way you assign the trackers. So once you've got the trackers on your body, one goes on your chest, one goes on your hip, 2 go on your thighs, and 2 go on your shins. Once you've got all the trackers on your body, Steam VR launched, you're wearing your headset, the way you assign them is you just click begin assignment, and then you press the button on each tracker to assign the body part. I think that's really cool. It's very intuitive, and it just works. After you've assigned your trackers, you want to move on to body calibration. Here you choose your primary hormone and then the height measurement. I choose manual and I type in 174 centimeters. No height shaming in the comments, guys. Then we move on to place-based calibration. And if you're used to anything like Slime VR, for example, the place-based calibration is actually going to be completely different here. First of all, you want to stand in an I pose and press the set I pose button. And then what you want to do is you want to sit on the floor and set the L pose and press the set L pose button. Once those two are done, you're done with the place-based calibration, and you want to move on to tracker calibration. In tracker calibration, all you want to do is you want to stand in an I pose, shift weight onto your heels, face forward, and that's pretty much it. You press calibrate trackers, and your trackers are calibrated. Again, everything here just seems to work right out of the box, and there's nothing I can complain about here. So let's move on to tracking, as I know that that's exactly what all of you are here for. So hopping into VRChat, as usual, we're going to try this out with a bunch of different avatars, a bunch of different poses, and yeah, let's do it. So jumping into VRChat, the first thing you're going to notice here is the jittering. And as explained earlier, this is because of the suboptimal antenna that is currently inside the review kits. And this actually binds up to how these are different from something like Slime VR. Stonx has built everything from the ground up, allowing them much more fine-tuning. But because of this, they also need to do a lot more fine-tuning, as they are basically building this from scratch. So some things aren't ready, some things aren't exactly 100% there yet, but these are review kits. They're not the final product. So what we're mostly going to take a look at here is the actual poses themselves and how well they match my body. But the jittering is definitely there. So as usual, let's jump into a few poses using a bunch of different avatars. As you can see, I did a bunch of kicking around, I did a bunch of turning around to see how they would react to fast movements, to see how they would react if, say, I was facing in a completely different direction. But because the skeleton is bound to your HMD, that didn't really cause any problems. Now, I did have to reset maybe once throughout the entire thing, where maybe a tracker slipped on my body or something like that. That is unfortunately a problem with trackers that you have to mount onto your body. If they slip a little bit, you're just going to have to reset the positioning. But other than that, you can see that the avatars actually followed my body positions well. So, for example, I was able to sit down on a chair and they followed that. I was able to sit down on the floor and they followed that perfectly fine. I was able to kick, I was able to jump, I was able to lay down on the floor. I even tried push-ups, even though that just kind of looks more creepy than anything. And of course, I did try doing the handstand on a bunch of different avatars, and while I was at it, I stress tested the human neck. And I have to say, I'm gonna have to give the human neck about an 8 out of 10 when it comes to resilience. The trackers did very, very well though. As you can see, they continued tracking even while I was sliding down, and then they continued tracking while I was down on the floor. I know a lot of you are going to want to see this, so here are a few walking animations from me just walking around, how natural that looks. Now, I can't speak for how well they would work with drift and things like that in a larger play space, as this is the only play space I currently have. Again, I can sit down on the floor, no problem. I didn't notice any super noticeable drift in my using them. Again, I only had to reset them like once or twice, and I think that's because the tracker slipped. And other than that, they followed basically every single one of my body movements. Not 1:1, as these aren't lighthouse tracked. The accuracy isn't going to be 100% there, but it is going to be more than enough for most people. Now, one thing I did miss quite a bit is the rotation of my foot. Slime has that. These don't have that, as they go on your shins, which means that if you move your foot like this, it's not exactly going to track that. It's only going to track the movement of your shins. So that is something that I missed, but maybe could be added in the future with an extra module. But other than that, the TLDRs, the results are there. They speak for themselves. If this is something you would be interested in, I am of course going to leave all links down below. I am so happy to see more and more kits coming out for people to check out cheaper full body tracking alternatives. And also just the fact that, you know, no occlusion. No occlusion is always great. Because these things don't have base stations, you can hide under a blanket, you can have wireless PCVR and not have to worry about occlusion, as they do not require those base stations, which is great. But again, I am just so happy to see more and more alternatives coming out for consumers to play with full body tracking, as I do really think that this is an essential part of VR for it to move to where it needs to be. But yeah, that's going to be it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please do leave a like. If you disliked it, I guess this one works too. I hope you learned something new. And I do really like the way this review came out, so let me know your opinions down below. Check out our Discord, check out our Reddit. I want to see you posting your spice memes on there. And thank you so much to the Patreons supporting this channel. You guys help me out a ton, paying my bills, paying my subscriptions, and helping me make these videos better. And as usual, if you want to be notified about future content coming up on the channel, make sure to smack the subscribe button with your forehead, ding my bell, and see you again in the next video. Peace.